Today I want to speak to you on the subject of tithes and offering. And I'm asking for anyone to make it make sense for me when preachers preach sermons based on paying tithes to God. And if you don't, you would be under a curse and you would live in lack and scarcity because you don't pay tithes and you don't pay offering. Make it make sense when you say that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and you state that everything comes from God. Make it make sense that someone have to take out 10% of their earning and pay God. While on the other hand, the men and women who teach such doctrine to their congregation, they live in luxury, having private jets, having many homes, sending the children to the best schools, living the best life, while the rest of the congregation, they struggle and they are taught that they're supposed to take care of their leader or their shepherd. So the shepherd is fleecing the sheep. Okay. And it doesn't make any sense to me. That is why the people who have such a belief, you must never argue with them or try to convince them otherwise. Just ask them to make it make sense. That's all. You see, when people have certain beliefs and when they practice certain things and do certain things that is nonsensical, okay, instead of you arguing with them and you trying to convince them, ask them to make it make sense for you. You see, it is very easy to deceive someone and it is very hard to convince them that they are deceived. So instead of you trying to convince someone that they have been deceived and brainwashed, it is better that you ask them to make what they're saying or doing make sense. And there is where they will struggle. Okay, because for the very first time, they would be facing themselves and they would be exercising their mind. Because one of the things that most people in this world don't do is think. You see, you've been kept so busy, okay, chasing after the physical things of this world that you forget that you are non-physical. Your true essence is non-physical. And everything in this physical three-dimensional world, it comes out of the physical world. And so you're putting the cat before the horse when you allow the outer things of this world to keep you in a place of fear, where you carry around certain beliefs that are keeping you limited. For example, it is stated in the Bible that I would open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you wouldn't have room enough to receive this blessing when you pay your tithes. But most people believe tithes here is speaking about money. But if you study money, you'd realize that money is energy and that everything is based on energy, vibration, and frequency. And so if money is energy and money is spiritual and you are mass of energy, it means it is 10% of your energy that you must surrender so that you will be able to discover the other 90 and live 100% life on this planet, being aware of your God self. The reason why I can tell you that is because I was able to put a book together called How to Open the Floodgates of Abundance. And in that book, I teach you how to give yourself 10% of everything you own. Give it to yourself, not to someone else, but to yourself, in acknowledgement that the self of you is God and that you're just having a human experience. And when you start doing that, you start to see the changes in your life. Then it will start to make sense to you. But taking 10% of your salary and giving it to a pastor or a preacher or a certain religious organization with the belief that you are being scriptural and that you are doing God a favor and you are being a good Christian, it's all deception. So that is why I'm saying make it make sense, because it just doesn't make any sense at all. You see, when you realize that everything is mental and everything is psychological and everything was first a thought and first an idea, and you realize that you're born in this world in a state of forgetfulness or a state of amnesia, and you realize that you've been conformed by following all of the traditions and the different things being passed down to you, you would realize when you're willing to surrender those, because you're just using 10% of your thinking capacity or 10% of your mind, and you surrender that ego self, that limited part of you, that human experience, which keeps you in that 10%. When you're willing to surrender that and give that up, that is like a debt to your ego self. Then you'll find the 90, okay? And that 90 will teach you of your true self, your God self, your higher self. And you will get the results in life. And the results that you will get in life will be based on your own experience. And so it's only when you put knowledge to work and you have the experience that you're actually acting in wisdom. So I'm doing this video to get people to really understand what it means to have true wisdom. Because when you start to take 10% of what you own and give it to the pastor, give it to the church, you're not acting in wisdom. That is not wisdom. That is why there have never been any window that have been opened up to people who do that. Okay, and they've been receiving a blessing that they do not have room enough to store that blessing. It have never happened. But when you allow yourself to go beyond the box or think outside of the box, to go beyond what religion would have offered you, and you come into self-realization, you would have an experience whereby you would have so much wisdom and so much inspiration and so much thing being inspired to you that you wouldn't have room enough to store such knowledge of self, that you would have to share it with others. And the more you share is the more you would be inspired. That is why you wouldn't have room enough to store it, because it's an ongoing thing. So the stores of God is really the mind. Okay. And so when your mind is in real alignment with your higher self, you start to see life from a different angle. You start to see things in a different way. And you can't help but just teach others or pour yourself out to others. It will bring you into a place of servitude where you just want to serve others with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you have. And that's the real blessing that you will get when you understand the real tithe and offering, and when it really makes sense to you. Okay? But for that to really happen, you definitely have to be willing to unlearn and relearn and reprogram your subconscious mind to learn to think for yourself. Because millions of people all around the world still giving of their earning to the religious bodies, believing that Malachi chapter 3 is speaking of giving literal money. But when you understand its energy, then you will know when you really give that energy to the higher power and you surrender, you can have anything that you desire in this three-dimensional physical world. As a matter of fact, your life would reflect what is happening because your life would bring forth bountifully. And everyone who knows you would know that truly the windows of heaven have been opened to you and pour you out a blessing that you do not have room enough to store, that you're just sharing it with others and they're getting the results that they so desire in life. That's when it truly makes sense. But what they're doing in the church system, it doesn't make sense. And I want someone to make it make sense for me. Okay, prove me wrong. That's what I'm saying. Make it make sense. Okay, because it doesn't really make any sense. Okay. So with that being said, my brother, my sisters, I want to thank you very much for listening to me. I want to say to you, if this is the very first time that you listen to me and what I'm saying, if it makes sense to you, if it really resonates with you, and you have a subscriber already, I'm definitely encouraging you to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share this video. Also, if you like to follow me on Instagram, you like to follow me on TikTok, you can definitely follow me at Black Mad Guru. And if you like to get my books, the links are down in the description. You have about 10 or more books to choose from. Also, if you want to become a part of my Patreon community, you're most welcome. I have a course there that is called the Inner Sun Science and Technology to Create Your Reality Consciously. And along with that is a bonus course on self-concept. Also, if you want to be part of my Free Thinkers and Seekers University, you're most welcome. You can become a member. But my last encouragement to you is to make sure that you check out all of the links that is down below. And definitely let your intuition lead you and guide you into what to do. So with that being said, I just want to say peace. Love you all. I'm out.